Hello guys, welcome to my SPA LAP guide. This is in support of the Hotlap video I did in the Audi GT3 LMS Evo. Video link in the top right hand corner of your screen. SPA is a beautiful circuit with a great flow to it. Hopefully with this guide I can help you guys find some time out on track. Heading into La Source, we're looking to brake just before the 100 metre board on the left. Trying to stay wide until the point that we want to turn in. Trail braking initially, coming off the brakes just as we head into the little bit of a dip on the apex. Do this to help the car roll through the corner. We're then going to use the end of the dip as the tarmac starts coming back towards us to get a little bit more grip on the front end. We use that to rotate the car through the last little bit of the corner. As we start to feel the front end bite, we smoothly apply the throttle before opening up the steering, running ourselves wide down into Eau Rouge. Heading into Eau Rouge and Raidillon, we're looking to get our left hand tyres onto the left hand side yellow and red curbing. Careful not to bring the car too far over and touch the grey concrete. If you do that, you'll unsettle the car, cause the aero to become unbalanced as we're then going to head up through Raidillon. We're looking to stay to the left where the curbing stops, and we're going to just be on the left of the white line. Then turn up through Raidillon. Major point I see people making a mistake on here is there is actually a slight crest to Raidillon on exit, and it will massively unsettle the rear of cars like the Audi and some other rear engine cars. So we're going to try and do everything we can to open up the steering straight at the top of Raidillon. As you can see, I do it on this lap quite aggressively. On the exit, nice and aggressively over the final left-hand side curb. Use as much as that's possible. Takes a while to practice and learn how much you can abuse that. Heading up the Kemmel Straight into Le Combe, we're looking to brake just before or at the yellow and red curbing, depending on vehicle, track conditions and vehicle setup. Will depend how much you can push the brakes into here, but use the start of the curbing on the left as the reference. Initially braking in a straight line before we start to wind on the steering and trail braking in. Aiming to use plenty of curb on the right. We can use the curb to open up the corner and help us rotate the car. So I tend to just leave the vehicle, specifically the Audi, in third. Some vehicles might like to drop down to second here. In the Audi, with lots of rotation in the vehicle naturally as well as into the setup, I like to use third just to keep a little bit more stability. Before on exit, we then drop it down to second for the left. Being careful not to run too wide on exit as we want to get ourselves all the way back over to the left of the track before sweeping right on Malmedy. Try not to hit the curb on apex. If we hit the curb on apex, we'll unsettle the car as we're bringing on the throttle. So missing the curb, bringing on the throttle as we're getting to the apex, running ourselves wide. Right hand tyres should be up onto the curbing. If you go onto the AstroTurf, you'll get an off track. Depending on whether it's a quali, hot lap or race, you'll want to push this more or less. But every lap you should be aiming to get your right hand tyres just onto the red and yellow curbing. Heading down into Rivage, we're looking to start braking in line with the yellow and red curbing on the left. Because Rivage has got a downhill entry, you can find the rear end step out. So we're going to transition into a double apex for the corner and do a really long, slow application of the steering wheel for the full length of the braking zone. This is just going to make it much less likely for the back to step out as we're pushing really hard on entry. Trailing braking in, moving ever so slightly away from the apex in the middle of the corner, before then cutting back slightly on exit, trying not to run too wide on exit because we want to get back to the right for the following corner. For the left, to give us as open a corner as possible, we're going to run our car all the way up to the right onto the right hand curbing. This is going to unsettle the car slightly as we come off the curbing because of the angle of it. So I personally choose to miss the apex curbing and give a smoother turn for myself. Some people will aggressively go over the curbing on apex. It depends very much on car setup or car. On the throttle smoothly, I probably could have got on the throttle a little bit earlier this lap or a little bit more aggressively. On exit, running as wide as possible, left hand tyres up onto the curbing on the right, using as much of it as possible. Be careful of track limits here, but with some practice you should be able to consistently get your left-hand tyres up onto the curbing. Heading into Pullman, looking to move right-hand tyres up onto the curbing on the right-hand side to open up the corner as much as possible. I'm using in between the two red markers in the Armco as a reference for the braking zone. Then trying to smoothly apply the steering lock at the same time of breathing onto the brake pedal. Careful not to brake too sharply or even using all of the brake, as that will just unsettle the car, move too much weight forward and cause the rear to over-rotate. So we've got to be careful on entry for this. On mid-corner, trying to clip the curb or just miss it. Then on exit, trying not to run too wide and use too much of the curb, as this just loses grip and stops us from getting back into the second apex, where we're just trying to be as smooth as possible, minimising steering lock and running wide on exit. Coming up to Lafanya, using the board over the top of the track as your braking reference. Have to be really careful and have a good feel for the car on entry, with lots of trail braking whilst you're applying the steering lock. Careful as you start to wind off the brake, because the fronts will start to get more purchase on the tarmac and cause the back to start to come round, so it's something you have to be very careful with. Following the curb, try not to go onto the curb on the right hand. There's a nasty bump sort of 2/3 of the way round. It can cause you to be really inconsistent and lose time. Mid-track, before the left-hander, and then through the left-hander I try and touch the curb as it helps pull the back of the car round slightly and gives a bit of rotation, as it's a fairly benign corner without any deceleration or braking coming in, so it's hard to load up the front, so I use the curb to help rotate the car. On the exit, I'm then looking to use all the track possible, left-hand tyres up onto the exit curb. Into campus, same as Malmedy, because we're heading downhill on entry, the rear's going to be really keen to turn on you, so we need to be extra careful on the turning phase if we're still on the brakes. Using the start of the curbing again as a reference, braking a little bit before it. I'm going to miss the apex curb. Some people will ever so slightly clip the apex curb, but in something like the Audi that's so keen to rotate, I'm trying to miss it before running as wide as possible. Right hand tyres all the way up to the edge of the curb, and this is incredibly important because Stavolo is such a crucial corner heading up to the back straight, and so we want to be full throttle through that, giving ourselves as wide an entry as possible, all the way on the left on the curbing. Turning right, clipping the curb slightly can help the back to rotate round. I do it too much on this lap, and so I probably lose half a tenth down the straight, but the principle's still there. Clip the curb to help yourself rotate. On the exit, left-hand tyres should be over the curbing. You can even run the right-hand tyres up onto the curbing on exit. Be careful of track limits, but once you're a little used to it, you should be able to do this fairly reliably. Up to Blanchemont, be careful not to run the car too far to the right. I see a lot of people run their car all the way onto the green of the track. It actually loses camber outside here, so just run your right-hand tyres slightly off the track without being too much. You don't need to. The GT3s have got so much downforce. Just a smooth application of the steering will get you through full throttle. Running nice and wide on exit onto the curb. Don't run yourself all the way to the left of the track before you hit the brakes for the bus stop chicane. You just increase the length. So straight line it. Aim yourself so that by the time you want to turn in, you'll be over to the left-hand side of the track. But braking, from the point you brake, you're in the middle. Using the banner over the top of the track as the initial reference. And then as you come past that, you'll see a white line appear over the middle of the track. We're looking to brake ever so slightly after that. Aiming for the outside of the track just before we want to turn in. Peel off the brakes and using the rise of the track to help rotate the car and get purchase on the front tyres. Between the two corners, aim for the white line on the pit entry and the cone in front of you. Before then aiming the car left, again use the rise of the track and the curbing on the inside to help give the front tyres purchase and lift the rear round. From there on exit, running nice and wide, left hand tyres onto the curb. If you found the lap guide useful, please subscribe, it would make me a very happy boy. Also, here's the next video, go watch it, I'd be super duper much appreciative. And my Twitch, go check that out too, link in my description below. Danke.